another issue. So this is the other thing we get to do, and I told you so about. So he has the bond in New York, right? He owes what 470 or something billion or million now. Sorry, 470 million. Couldn't come up with it. They said it was an impossibility. They couldn't get the money. Then out of nowhere, this guy Hanky from California, who does subprime auto lending, so he does like usury, kind of things where he gives these incredibly expensive loans to poor people with bad credit.
Dante wrote a special ring in hell for people like that. I'm just saying.
Yep, that's actually true. Yep, there is in Inferno. Yep.
I know. I wasn't making that up.
I know.
Funny and true.
Good reference. Good reference. But so he would charge them these huge interest rates on these shitty loans, and then when these people inevitably couldn't pay it, he just repossessed their cars. So he's just taking advantage of poor people who don't know what's going on. So that's how that guy's made his billions.
That makes him the appropriate type of Trump supporter,
Oh, he's a big Trump supporter. He's giving Trump a lot of money. But he came in and they lowered the bond to $175 million. I mean, I get why they did it. In retrospect, it ended up being a bad idea, so I was wrong about that. But, they lowered it. This guy, Hanky, comes in and says, okay, we'll cover it with my insurance company. Now it turns out there's some problems with the insurance company. So we're going to jump in. This is Michael Popok with the Midas Touch, and he's going to talk a little bit about this.
This is Michael Popok, Legal AF Hot Take. Did Donald Trump's lawyers lie to the Appellate Division First Department about his inability to obtain a bond when they knew or should have known that Don Hanke, who runs the company Knight Specialty Insurance Company that eventually posted the $175 million bond, had already come forward and said that he was willing to engage to talk about the posting of a bond for the much larger amount, the $465 million, at the very same time the lawyers for Donald Trump, including Alina Habba, including Chris Kise, including Todd Blanche, were telling the appellate court that they looked everywhere and they can't find a bonding company to step forward, that they had been rejected, as they had told Judge Engoron, by more than 37 or more bonding companies, when Don Hanke, who apparently likes to talk to the media about his role in bonding Donald Trump, has now come forward in an interview with ProPublica and has declared that, no, I was on the radar with the Trump team before they filed their papers with the Appellate Division First Department about not being able to fund a bonding company. And I was in deep discussions with them about doing just that. In fact, he goes on.
So Hanke gave up the game. So his lawyers went to the court and said, hey, Trump doesn't really have the $400 million, because he said he had $400 million in cash. He doesn't have it. We can't put up the bond. No bonding company will deal with us. It's too big of an amount, blah, 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 blah. That and his credit is for shit. Nobody will loan him money. And they told the court, we just can't do it. It's a practical impossibility to get a loan, is what they told the court. And the appeals court said, all right, fine, we'll lower it to 175 to do the stay for the appeal, right? So then this guy, Hanke, comes out and says, okay, I'll cover the 175. Well, Hanke then goes on TV and says, oh, no, I would have given Trump the whole $470 million to cover the bond. So his lawyers lied, so Trump wouldn't have to borrow all that money from Hanke, because Hanke's going to charge him a lot of interest. He's already getting 9% from New York, but Hanke's going to charge him more. So there's that portion of it. Then there's the other portion of it, which I'll just tell you about. Hanke's full of shit. Because initially we covered this last week. He went in and he posted the bond. They went in and said, okay, send all the paperwork. He sent the paperwork. They rejected the paperwork. The court clerk did. And said, well, you haven't given us financial statements or anything else. Right? So he finally sends them financial statements. But he types them up they're typed up in a motion. There's no audit. There's not signed by any auditor or accountant firm or anything. So they're just whatever statements he bullshitted on paper. It would be like me writing you an IOU on a fucking cocktail napkin. It's meaningless, right? So he gives that to the court as his financial statements. And even those financial statements say the company only has about $130 million. That the Knight Insurance that he's using as the bonding company only has $130 million. And Letitia James is like, well, that's not enough because 130 won't even cover the 175. Plus, typically to be a bonding company, the bond you post cannot be more than 10% of your assets that you have available. Otherwise, you're insolvent,
Oh.
right? This is
Okay.
just standard insurance, right? You need to be able
Sure.
to pay back your claims if things happen, right? If there's a disaster. So he can't even cover it. And it's already, whatever it is, 170% of what he has in this little company. When Letitia James even was like, no, that he can't cover it. There's no reliability. We'll get the money. And we might have to go seize shit from Don Henke. Right? I think that's his name. And Trump. And it'll be a big fucking clusterfuck. So she wants to have a hearing. And she's like, I'm not even sure this guy's licensed to do this in New York. Because you have to be a licensed insurance agent. In each state you sell insurance. I've sold insurance before as part of my practice. You have to get licensed in the state. So like if I had clients in, Washington or California, it was a pain because I had to go get licensed to get that shit done. Right? Well, Henke's not licensed in New York. And we know that for sure now because his whole response to Letitia James's, his attorney's response to Letitia James's questioning was, Don Henke this company doesn't need to meet the bonding requirements, the insurance requirements at all because he's not even licensed. That was their argument. That would be like me going into a hospital and walking into a room and performing surgery and the guy dies and like, hey, you're liable, you killed him. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I'm not even a doctor. You can't hold it against me.
Oh my God. It's such a disaster. It's such a disaster.
It's a
I'm not gonna
total
lie,
shit show.
I'm kind of looking forward to some Trump buildings having a different name slapped on the side of them.
Yeah. Yep. So it's funny to me because he lied to the court to get it reduced, right? The amount reduced for the bond. They could have gotten the 470 from Henke. They just didn't want him because it cost them too much. And the other thing, so they lied. They flat out lied to the court. Here was the ProPublica article he was talking about right here, where they talk about this. He just flat out lied. His attorneys lied to the court. And on top of that fact, the guy, they're going to a hearing now. So they're going back in front of Engoron, who was the judge who heard the case, so I think it's the 24th or the 25th of this month, later this month. So, 2 weeks from now? And they're going to have to explain this, and Engoron might sit there. So all they did was buy themselves till the end of the month, because Engoron's probably going to sit there and go, well, no, you can't cover it unless you have it in cash or something. And so I'm not going to accept this bond from behalf of the court, and you can appeal that. But while you're pending all that, you're way past the 20 days past the deadline now, 30 days past the or more than that, 30 days past the deadline. Letitia James looks like she's going to have to start seizing his shit and freezing his bank accounts.
I can almost hear Trump saying, the courts are being mean to me.
It's so unfair. It's a witch hunt. It's
They're
election.
mean to me. It's a hunt.
It's election interference.
The courts have gotten political now. They're not.
And then they did
supposed to.
dumps. They call them dumps. Big, massive dumps.
So that whole thing. So this guy Henke too. He's given Trump. It turns out he's given Trump like over $400 million over the last like 7 or 8 years. And he's given Jared Kushner tens of millions while he was in the White House. This guy is just trying to buy favor from who he thinks is going to be the next president. He's trying to buy him off. I mean, that's what it is. And this guy Henke's super dirty. But this whole thing was a scam. The money wasn't there. So for all of you that were like, when we said, hey, I don't think he's going to cover the bond, and you were like, well, see, he did. He got a bond. He covered it. We were like, well, we'll see when it posts. And they were like, well, he's covered it. You should just admit you were wrong. I said, we'll see. If he posts, we'll admit we're wrong. Guess what? Didn't post. He's going to court because the fucking thing's a scam. So I'll take you guys double or nothing that Goran says, fuck this shit, and Letitia James has to start seizing his accounts and then start going after his properties. Which I feel bad for Letitia James. That's a lot of unnecessary work for her, but, you're the DA. Oh man.